I stumbled across a story on Reddit that genuinely freaked me out. It actually made me want to swear off technology for good. It's that unsettling. I'm pretty sure you guys are going to get a chill down your spine reading this, too. By that point, we'd been dating for 5 years. She wasn't exactly the marrying type, though. She thought the whole tradition felt pretty outdated. It was a bit of a weird vibe to deal with, but to be honest, if she had been into it, I would have jumped at the chance to marry her within just 3 months of us getting together. She was just so full of life. She was the kind of person who'd pick dare every single time you played that game. She was never happier than when we were out camping, even though she was also a total tech geek. And for some reason, she always had this faint scent of cinnamon about her. But look, she wasn't perfect. She'd always tell me stuff like, if I kick the bucket before you, don't just stand there saying nice things about me. She hated that performative stuff. She'd tell me that if I didn't call her out on her nonsense, I was doing her a disservice. She knew she had plenty of flaws, and she saw those as just another part of who she was. So, this is for M. The music she claimed to like and the tracks she actually jammed out to were two totally different things. Her version of showing affection was usually just a side hug. And, I'm not kidding, she had these really long toes, just like a chimpanzee. It was actually kind of wild. I know, that's totally off topic, and I'm sorry for rambling. Let me just get back on track. You get the picture of who she was, though, and I don't think I could talk about this without you knowing what she was like. So, let's get into the meat of it. Emily had been gone for almost 13 months when she messaged me for the first time. It started on September 4, 2013. I had kept her Facebook account active just so I could drop her a message now and then, post on her wall, or scroll through our old albums. Turning it into a memorial page felt too final. It just didn't feel like something Emily would have wanted. I shared the login with her mom, Susan, but Susan only really knows how to use a computer for about 3 minutes at a time, so that wasn't the source. At first, I was confused, and I just assumed it was actually her somehow. By November 16, I'd confirmed with Susan that she hadn't touched Emily's account since the week she died. Since Emily knew a ton of people, my first thought was that one of her tech-savvy friends was playing a sick, twisted joke on me. I realized pretty quickly that whoever was chatting with me was just recycling old messages from our past history. That bit about the wheels on the bus. We'd talked about that while picking songs for a road trip we never actually took. Hello popped up a million times. Then, around February 2014, Emily started tagging herself in my photos. I'd get the notification, but by the time I clicked over, the tag would usually be gone. The first time I caught it in action, it felt like someone had gut-punched me. She'd tag herself in places that made sense, spots she used to hang out at. I've still got screenshots of 2 from April and June. Those were the only ones I managed to catch, so they're a bit out of order for this story. During that stretch, I completely stopped sleeping. I was just too angry to drift off. She kept tagging herself in random pictures every couple of weeks. Friends who noticed and actually told me thought it was some kind of messed up technical glitch. I found out later that some of them noticed but didn't say a word, and a few of them even blocked me on Facebook. At this point, some of you might be wondering why I didn't just delete my own profile. I really wish I had. I took a break for a while, but on the days when I just can't bring myself to leave the house, it's nice to have my friends around to chat with. It's comforting to visit M's page when I don't see that little green, active, circle next to her name. I was already pretty socially reclusive while she was alive, but her death turned me into a full-blown hermit. Facebook and online games are pretty much my only real social outlet now. What would you do in this situation? Anyway, on March 15th, I sent a message to the person I figured was hacking her account. I got an answer on March 25th. Looking back at those logs months later, I realized she was actually recycling my own words, too. My response feels pretty lackluster in hindsight. I was intentionally throwing out emotional bait to keep the hacker interested in their little game, even though it was absolutely devastating to write. I was working off the assumption that someone low enough to do this must be the kind of person who feeds on other people's misery. I was all over tech forums trying to find ways to track this person down and hounding Facebook. I needed to keep them talking so I could gather evidence. Before you ask, yeah, I changed the password and all the security info a million times. On April 16th, I got this reply. It seemed like total gibberish, just like all our other conversations. It was all just recycled from older messages she'd sent. I hadn't found any solid leads, and even though Facebook gave me locations where the account had been accessed, they were all places I could explain: my home, my work, her mom's place. My response wasn't bait this time. "Yo, ask Nathan" was an inside joke that's too lame to explain, but seeing her type it out again crippled me. My reaction in real life wasn't nearly as composed as my typing looks. I wasn't expecting my bond back, but her last few messages were starting to genuinely scare me, even if I wasn't ready to admit it yet. By May 8th, I was completely at a loss for words. Freezing was the first word that hadn't been recycled from our old chats, and it hit me hard. It's triggered these recurring nightmares that have only started messing with my head recently. In my dreams, I see her trapped in a car that's ice cold, her skin turned blue and gray, while I'm standing outside in the warmth, screaming at her to unlock the door. The worst part is that she doesn't even know I'm there. Sometimes, in the dream, her legs are lying on the ground outside with me. It's haunting. Then came May 24th. I wasn't actually drinking, but I used to pretend I was pretty often. Emily wasn't really the touchy-feely type. She'd get all awkward and embarrassed if we tried to say, "I love you," cuddle, or talk about our feelings. She was just way more relaxed with all that mushy stuff when she thought I was buzzed. Her reply to me that day is exactly what finally pushed me to turn her profile into a memorial page. I honestly thought it would stop this whole weird, twisted cycle. It might look innocent enough compared to what she'd said before, but it was just a line pasted from a conversation where I was trying to talk her into letting me drive her home from a friend's place. The reality is, in that crash, the dashboard had crushed her. Her body was severed in a clean diagonal line from her right hip down to her mid-thigh. One of her legs was found tucked underneath the back seat. If you look back to August 7, 2012, the day she died, these logs are the last time I spoke to her, thinking she was still alive. You'll understand why I'm showing you this in a second. Yesterday, July 1, 2014, I had officially memorialized her page a few days after that message about walking. She'd been dead silent until today. She hadn't even been tagging herself in my pictures. I'm at my wit's end. What am I supposed to do? Should I just delete the memorial page entirely? What if it really is her? Just thinking about it makes me want to lose my lunch. I have no idea what's going on. Wait, I just got a Facebook alert. I'm too terrified to switch windows and actually look at it. Can you see why I don't want to go anywhere near technology anymore? I mean, sure, the odds that this is just some hacker are pretty high. But, I don't know. It's just so eerie. Anyway, the next story I've got for you today comes from the Scary Stories section on Reddit. It's titled, "My Mother Paid a Fortune to Be Buried Alive, and She Made Me Watch." Alright, I can only imagine where this one is headed, guys. The magazine I was holding was dated January 2024. The page edges were a bit wavy from the humidity, and the cover featured a white sailboat cutting through the deep blue waters of the Mediterranean. I wasn't actually reading, though. My eyes were just flicking over the captions: freedom, horizon, exclusivity, but my brain was stuck on the annoying sound coming from the reception desk, a pen tapping against wood. "Felipe, fix your collar," my mother said, not taking her eyes off me. She was sitting with the posture of an exiled queen, her back perfectly straight, barely even touching the moss-green velvet armchair. "It is fixed, Mom," I lied, quickly wiping the sweat from my neck. The air conditioning was humming, but this old building, a renovated mansion in the Guardian's district of São Paulo, was still holding on to that heavy, midday January heat. We weren't at a hospital, and it sure didn't look like a clinic. It felt more like a luxury notary office or the waiting room of a high-end criminal defense firm. There was dark wood paneling everywhere, Persian rugs that swallowed the sound of our footsteps, and that thick, respectful silence that you can only get if you have serious money. There wasn't even a hint of antiseptic, the whole place smelled like floor wax and fresh espresso. "Did you bring the apartment transfer documents?" she asked. "I did. They're in my briefcase, but aren't we doing that later? I thought today was just for the consultation for that resting procedure you mentioned." She finally turned her gaze toward me. Her cold, blue eyes always reminded me of marbles, there wasn't a shred of fear in them. "There is no later, Felipe, for God's sake. You never pay attention to the details. It is today." "What is today?" I asked. The pen tapping stopped. The receptionist looked up from her computer. "Donna Clarice Albuquerque, Dr. Veloso is ready for you." My mother stood up in one fluid movement. She didn't use a cane. She didn't have cancer or Alzheimer's, she was 68, in perfect health, and had a bank account big enough to let her do whatever she wanted, including this, whatever this was. Up until that exact moment, I honestly thought we were just there for a routine checkup. We walked down a wide hallway lined with framed pictures, antique botanical prints, roots, tubers, and seeds germinating in the darkness of the soil. There were no flowers, only the parts of life that belong underground. We stepped into Dr. Veloso's office. He wasn't in a lab coat, he was wearing a sharp, tailored gray suit with gold cufflinks. His desk was completely clear, except for a black leather folder and a pen. "Donna Clarice, super punctual," he said without cracking a smile, reaching out to shake her hand like he was closing a big business deal. "And this is Felipe, I presume?" "The trustee." "Trustee," I repeated, shaking his hand. It felt as dry as old parchment. "I'm her son." "Technical terms, Felipe," my mother cut in, taking a seat. "Let's skip the pleasantries, doctor. I have a lunch scheduled. Or, actually, I don't. Habit of speech. Let's just sign." Dr. Veloso flipped open the folder. The creak of the leather chairs sounded deafening in that silent room. Dr. Veloso pulled out 3 copies of a document printed on heavy, cream-colored paper. "The plot is ready exactly to your specifications," he said. "Clay soil, medium compaction, no concrete lining, just like I asked," my mother replied, reaching for the pen. "I want direct contact. I'm not interested in being some kind of pickle preserved in a cement box. I want true integration." I looked from her to the doctor, a throbbing headache suddenly blooming in my left temple. "Wait," I said, holding up a hand. "Soil. Worms. Mom, are you actually buying a burial plot? You brought me all the way out here to watch you buy your own grave." "Dar." Veloso stopped shuffling the papers and shot me a look, one eyebrow arched high. "Donna Clarice, has Mr. Felipe not been briefed on the specifics of the total immersion protocol?" My mother let out a long, theatrical sigh, the same one she used when I was a kid and spilled juice on the rug. "I told you it was a definitive procedure, Felipe. You only ever listen to what you want to hear." "What do you mean, definitive? Like, dying? Are you planning on ending your life right here?" "Don't be so vulgar," she clicked her tongue. "Suicide is for desperate people who jump off bridges and cause traffic jams. What I'm doing is assisted vital renunciation. It's a civil right. I'm just bored, Felipe." I let out a nervous laugh that sounded more like a bark. "Bored? You were supposed to head to the ranch with Aunt Sonia tomorrow. You just finished renovating the kitchen. And it turned out like crap." The granite came in stained, she snapped, signing the first page with a sharp, aggressive flourish. "Look, son. I've seen it all. I've traveled. I've been married and widowed. I've raised you. The world is just boring. It's too hot, it's too loud. Politics is a joke, and technology just irritates me. I don't have the patience to sit around and wait for cancer to eat me alive in 10 years. I want to leave while I'm still beautiful and lucid. I just want to turn out the lights. She shoved the paper toward me. Sign as a witness. Go on. I stared at the document, consent for burial in a state of wakefulness. The fine print spelled it out. The contractor understood there would be no chemical euthanizing agents used. Death would be the result of natural hypoxia, a lack of oxygen caused by the weight of the soil. My breakfast started churning in my throat. Buried in a state of wakefulness. My voice cracked. You're going to be buried alive. Anesthesia interferes with the experience, Dr. Veloso explained as calmly as if he were describing a vintage wine. Our Foundation's mission is a return to the earth. The sensation of weight, the absolute darkness, the embrace of raw matter, that is the only real form of connection. Drugs only numb the transition. Donna Clarice has opted for the pure root package. It's only for the strong, like her. You people are sick. I shouted, standing up and knocking my chair over. Mom, we're leaving. This is insane. You're clearly losing your mind, and I'm going to have you committed. My mother didn't even bother looking up from the papers. Son, if you don't sign this, my entire estate goes straight to the agency. The will is already drafted and finalized. If you sign now, the assets are yours. If you make a scene, you leave here with nothing, and I'm going into that hole regardless. She looked up at me then, and the coldness in her gaze was absolute. She wasn't playing around. She was negotiating. It's a simple choice, Felipe. Do you want to be a rich orphan or a poor orphan? Either way, you're going to be an orphan today. Gosh, can you imagine hearing your own mother say that to you? What would you do in this situation? I stood there, paralyzed, staring at the woman who gave birth to me. The woman who taught me how to tie my shoes was now blackmailing me with my inheritance just so I would watch her be buried alive. And the worst part? I started thinking about her assets. I thought about my mounting debts, the late car payments, and the private school tuition for my kids. That 1 second of hesitation was the most monstrous thing I've ever felt in my life, and she saw it. She saw me waver and offered a small, victorious smile. Sit down, Felipe. Blue or black pen? I signed. My hand was shaking so violently that my signature looked like the EKG of a heart attack. Excellent, Dr. Veloso said, gathering the papers. Let's proceed to the courtyard. The courtyard was tucked behind the mansion. I had expected a cemetery or maybe some kind of hidden crematorium, but it was neither. It was a winter garden enclosed by high walls covered in lush ferns. The ceiling was a retractable glass structure, pushed wide open to let in the midday sun. It was actually beautiful, orchids, massive ferns, a small koi pond, and in the middle of a perfect lawn, there were graves. Not many, just 3 or 4 mounds of fresh earth and one open pit. It was a perfect rectangle carved into the damp red soil. There was no coffin. The bottom of the hole was lined with immaculate white linen sheets that stood out sharply against the dark mud. 2 men in green gardener's overalls stood by the edge, holding shovels, plain, old-fashioned construction shovels with handles worn smooth by use. No tech, no machinery. Just manual, visceral work. Donna Clarice, Dr. Veloso said, gesturing toward the grave with a sweep of his hand. Your bed. My mother walked to the edge and looked down, assessing the depth. Looks comfortable. And deep enough that I won't have to hear the car horns from the street. 2.5 meters of natural acoustic insulation, the doctor promised. She started to undress right there, in front of me, the doctor, and the gardeners. She slipped off her blazer, her silk blouse, and her skirt, remaining in the simple white cotton slips she'd brought in her purse. For the first time, she looked vulnerable. I saw the sagging skin on her arms and the varicose veins on her legs, but her posture remained rigid. "Felipe," she called out. "Help me down. I don't want the dirt touching my feet before it's time." I walked over, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. "Mom, please. We can go get ice cream. We can catch a movie. Just don't do this." "I hate the movies," she said, resting her hands on my shoulders. "Don't cry, Felipe. Don't look at it like that. It's pathetic, sure, but I'm actually happy. Just look at this place." She gestured toward the dark, freshly turned earth. "No annoying people, no noisy neighbors, no bad news. Just pure peace. That's all I want. Mom, you're going to suffocate. It's going to hurt, and you're going to regret this." "The doctor said the panic only lasts for 2 minutes," she replied calmly. "After that, the brain just shuts down. I can handle 2 minutes of panic in exchange for an eternity of silence." She sat on the edge of the grave, swung her legs over, and stepped down onto the white linen. The red dirt walls were just inches from her shoulders as she crossed her hands over her chest and looked up at me. "Felipe?" "Yeah, Mom. The alarm code for the house has been changed. It's 170126, today's date, so you don't forget. And that Chinese vase in the living room? It's a total fake. Feel free to sell it for whatever you can get." "Mom." I couldn't help it, tears were streaming down my face, dripping right onto the dirt down there. "Goodbye, dear. Be practical," she said, closing her eyes. "Doctor, you may proceed." Dr. Veloso gave a small nod to the gardeners. The sound that followed is what finally broke me, the sharp thwack of the shovel slicing into the loose pile of dirt, followed by the dull thud of the earth falling into the grave. The first load didn't hit her face. The gardener was either careful or highly trained. He piled the dirt onto her legs first, and I watched as the crisp white linen started to turn a dusty brown. My mother didn't move. Not a muscle. The second load covered her waist, and the third buried her hands. I wanted to jump in there. Every fiber of my being was screaming at me to act, to reach down and pull her out, but my mind was completely paralyzed by that contract. The apartment, the money, the sickening, absurd normality of the whole scene. Dr. Veloso was just checking his watch, and the gardeners kept working in a steady, rhythmic trance. To them, it was just another shift. When the dirt reached her neck, she was still perfectly motionless. Her chest rose and fell in a shallow rhythm, she was still breathing. The gardener paused and glanced at the doctor. "The face, sir. Proceed gently." The man filled his shovel one last time and tipped the red dirt over my mother's face. It covered her mouth, her nose, and her closed eyes. She didn't cough, and she didn't struggle. She just accepted the earth as if it were a blanket on a cold, winter night. Her face vanished, leaving only a mound of dirt where a person used to be. But they didn't stop. They kept on shoveling until the hole was level with the ground. I stood there for an eternity, watching as the white linen disappeared entirely. The gardeners began stomping on the soil to pack it down, and every single footfall felt like a direct blow to my chest. They were walking all over my mother. Was she still alive down there? How much air could possibly be left in that grave? 5 minutes? 10. Was she awake in that absolute, suffocating darkness, feeling the weight of tons of earth pressing down on her chest, unable to expand her lungs, trying to scream with a mouthful of mud? "It is done," Dr. Veloso said. "The planting was a success." He handed me an envelope. "Here are the keys and a copy of the death certificate. I've already listed the cause of death as cardiorespiratory arrest." The envelope felt heavy in my hand. "You're murderers," I whispered. "We are service providers, Felipe, and your mother was a very satisfied client. She got exactly what she wanted, silence. I walked out of the garden and through the waiting room. That same elderly couple was still there, and they looked up and smiled at me. "Is she gone?" the little old lady asked. "Was it beautiful?" I didn't answer. I just walked out into the street. The world hadn't changed at all, traffic was still stalled, a courier on a bike was honking frantically at a bus, and the sun was burning my skin. I climbed into my car, the steering wheel searing my hands. I stared at the envelope on the passenger seat, the apartment, the money, total financial freedom, all bought at the price of a few minutes of dirt on a face. I started the engine and immediately felt lightheaded. The seatbelt felt like a noose, and the roof of the car seemed to be pressing down on me. I rolled the window down, desperate for a lungful of air. When I reached her apartment and stepped inside, the silence was absolute. I went to the kitchen and opened the fridge, pulling out a half-eaten tub of her favorite pistachio ice cream. I took a spoonful, but I couldn't even swallow, my throat felt like it was packed with dirt. I went to her bedroom and opened the sock drawer to find the wall safe. I punched in the code, 170126. It clicked open, revealing jewelry, papers, and a single letter addressed to me, for Felipe. Read only after the planting. I opened it. Her handwriting was as firm and elegant as ever. "Felipe, if you're reading this, it means you didn't make a scene. Good boy. I knew greed would speak louder than grief. I raised you well. Don't feel guilty." I was telling the truth about being bored, but there was more to it. Last week, I was diagnosed with early onset, aggressive Alzheimer's. I saw what that did to your father, and I wasn't going to let that happen to me. I wasn't going to let you watch me wither away. I chose the earth because it doesn't judge and it doesn't forget. It only transforms. Enjoy the money, and please, no flowers. I'm already part of the garden. With love, Mom. I dropped the letter. She had lied to the doctor, and she had lied to me. She wasn't just bored, she was terrified. To spare me the agony of watching her decline, she'd chosen this insane, illegal exit. I stared at the wooden floor, trying to imagine her down there. Was it over? Had her heart finally stopped, or was she still in those 2 minutes of panic, clawing at the linen, screaming my name in the dark, regretting everything while the roots of the orchids began to feel the heat of her cooling body? The floor suddenly vibrated, the subway passing deep beneath us, but for a split second, I was certain it was her. Knocking on the shell of the world, begging to be let out. I slammed the safe shut, went to the living room, and cranked the TV to maximum volume. I needed noise. I needed to drown out the silence, because I finally understood, silence isn't peace. Silence is just the earth waiting to bury us. And the waiting list at that place? It's a long one. I just realized I even have a family discount now because of my mother's procedure. It was in the fine print. I looked up at the ceiling and it felt like it had descended a few inches. The truth is, our houses are just bigger coffins, and we spend our whole lives waiting for the lid to close. You know, I'm honestly torn. Part of me thinks it was a massive, selfless sacrifice for her to do that so he wouldn't have to watch her disappear into Alzheimer's. But at the same time, she completely stripped him of his agency, she made that decision for him, and that's a heavy burden to leave someone with. I don't know, maybe he would have wanted to be there for her, even at the end. What would you do in this situation? What did this story teach you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Anyway, that was a pretty heavy one, guys. If you liked the video, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe. If you didn't, well, I don't know what to tell you. Thanks for watching. Peace.